Mr. Montgomery, come on with me, gentlemen. How are you doing today? Thank you for waiting.
I don't think you want to know.
Okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
But we're okay.
It wasn't a fake question, it was a real question. I thought you were how about that? Fair
Yeah.
enough?
Yeah, I'm not too sick. I feel all right.
Oh,
I got a hiatal hernia, so have this
no. So
stomach.
you got all that kind of pain, right? I'm sorry.
It's actually pretty
Yeah.
serious.
No, I know it. I bet it is. So, gentlemen, I know a little bit about the case. Have a seat. My associate Lucas, who's with another person, actually was looking at some of the Google Earth pictures because I know what it is you guys are saying. So we start right from that premise.
Yeah, what are the elements? What are we talking
That's a really fair question. And we are also investigating whether or not the facts support what you were cited for. I don't have a straight answer for you at this point. But what I can tell you is the elements of this, of a trespass. Is it trespass that he charged you with? No, staying on median.
Staying on median.
Basically, under the law, there is a prohibition that you can't be in the median or within a certain distance of it because the concern is public safety, the people standing in the median, you have traffic, etc. The question becomes obviously whether or not this fits the statute if we're talking about a street that may not be a public street. So there's a very good factual question here that I think both of you have raised. And when we, in other words, I'm not disputing right now that this may be an issue that we don't have jurisdiction for, but I have to do more research on it to make that determination. What I am proposing at this point, what I think might make sense, is while we're figuring this out, I think it would make sense for you guys to have an attorney appointed to represent you. So that if we have a communication with them, you're not coming back to court all the time, we can talk with them, see what your side of the story is without you having to discuss it with us, and then make a determination as to whether or not we have the facts to really go forward on this case. Okay? I have a question. I think we have right now a good faith basis for it, but that doesn't mean at the end of the day my analysis is going to result in proceeding on it.
Sure.
Okay.
So we tried to go over the elements of the streets. They wouldn't let me get into my phone.
I know.
So we just went to the judge, and she had read off the entire statute, including the definition of streets.
And I can copy it for you. I'll print out a copy of it for you.
Yeah, so
Read it all.
Yeah, okay.
So the definition of a street,
Mm-hmm.
according to 7-1-1,
Mm-hmm.
is the entire width between property boundary lines.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're wondering is,
What are the property boundaries?
where are your property boundary lines?
And I don't have a straight answer for you. Let me do this.
Well, first off,
Okay.
before we get ahead,
Sure.
The tickets have been, there's so many discrepancies already.
Okay.
We just want to establish first where
Absolutely.
you allegedly found us.
Okay. Well, one of the things that apparently was amended on the ticket, and I don't know if it was looks like it was pursuant to a motion. Apparently, Officer Bliley, and we get these all the time, so I don't want you to think this is just directed at you. We get amendments all the time on tickets because they're out there and they're flustered maybe because there's a lot of back and forth and they write something wrong on the ticket. Usually it's a technical amendment like this one. What he said is he wrote 28th in Walnut, he wrote 28th in Canyon, he should have written 28th in Walnut. Okay?
And that's for just whose ticket?
That is for William. Are you William?
That's me.
Okay, so that's for yours. Let me see if the same mistake was made on the other citation for David. And it should have been 28th in Walnut.
But it hasn't been.
28th in Canyon.
But it hasn't been corrected.
It hasn't. Actually, there's no red writing on
With
here.
David's.
The motion was granted. But for whatever reason,
so the
staff
motion was granted for
It
both
was,
cases.
yes, it was.
Okay.
It just, and normally what staff will do is they'll use in red, basically if the judge granted something so it can be very clear on the ticket what was changed. I don't know why David's wasn't specifically written in red. That is a good question, but the point is the motion was granted. So both citations occurred in the same location and both indicate 28th and Walnut as the correction.
And so we're talking about
You said same location, both of us?
Yes.
Or
The
same.
identical same location?
Yeah, I think basically you're both contacted by the police together, if I remember correctly.
Sure, but I mean
Somebody wasn't
east and
off-
west side.
Yeah, somebody was off camera speaking to the police and somebody was on camera because I watched some video. of this, which I don't have a copy of right now, but you're entitled to.
Yeah, we definitely would like to discover to see
Absolutely.
what you guys have.
Yep. And
But,
in fact, if I have an extra video, I'm going to check. I just
guess
don't know if we have one.
Walnut goes through to the mall.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so if you look at the definition of private drive,
Mm-hmm.
it says something along the lines of just some sort of pavedness, or just doesn't talk about roads. It just says something that vehicles travel on. That's it. And so the boundary property lines of that Walnut private drive and the 29th Street subsection, if you look at the platting for that whole area, those are private drives. And so the property boundary lines that, if you look up on your Boulder County maps, Boulder Municipal Code maps, they all have parcel numbers.
Okay.
And so these parcel numbers are owned by 29th Street.
Okay.
Both streets had signs saying private drive, no city maintenance.
Right.
Yeah, so obviously the two are mutually exclusive, a private drive and a public street.
Mm-hmm. And the question is, if somebody from the mall came out and said to the officers, we want them to leave, we've asked them to leave and they didn't, that's a legitimate trespass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's not what we have here, and I understand
But
very
we're dealing
much
with
the difference.
private property.
We are.
Entirely.
So let me do this. I know that the attorney Lucas, who's here today, was researching that question because it is a good question. It's a valid question, guys. I don't know if he came up with an ultimate answer as to whether or not we want to proceed. So if you would be kind enough to give me a couple more minutes to speak with him about where he stands in this case, and he might even talk to you he could even talk to you directly about it. Lucas.
Can we bring him in? Can we bring him in?
Lucas, I'm talking with David and Williams.
Sure.
David, this is Wendy closely, and I know that you were doing a little more research on this than I was, so I wasn't really well versed in what you came up with, and I wanted you to maybe talk with them about it.
Sure.
Yeah, so we were talking about the definition of streets being in 7-1-1 being the entire width between property boundary lines.
If you guys wouldn't mind, I have to go run this back to the courtroom, then I'll run back here.
Oh, yeah,
You
sure,
want to bring it back?
Yeah.
You want to switch?
Sure, we'll switch.
Certainly.
We'll play switches.
Sounds
What
good.
are we doing with this? Do we...
Play offers in there.
Got it. Thank you so much, Lucas.
Sure.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
My name's Lucas Markley. Yep, 105 Peters.
Good to meet you.
How are you guys? Thanks for waiting. I know kind of a busy day today. Everybody wanted to talk.
But yeah, so the definition of a street is at least seems to be mutually exclusive with a private drive. If you look at the definition of private drive, it doesn't talk about property boundary lines.
Private property, people can call what they have on their property a street. But it's not a street by the definition of the statute and by the definition of street.
Okay. So you guys were over on, was it Walnut there?
Yeah, the east and west sides, both private drives, both have signage.
From our experience in all other jurisdictions, we thought that was an untouchable area. Freedom of speech.
Well, before we get ahead of that,
Sure.
yeah. So we're wondering if you guys are considering this statute applicable to all private drives in general, or are you alleging that these private drives are not private drives for the purposes of this
Good
statute?
point. There's Safeways, there's King Supers, there's private meetings everywhere.
Right.
These happen to be labeled streets, but we've seen
Yeah.
private drives not be labeled. Private drives be labeled marketplace, any sorts of things. So,
Was there any reason you guys chose that area? Or was it because of the signs? Or
to be completely honest with you, if you want to know the answer to that, we had a previous encounter with an officer who was kind enough to give us a warning. We were the first time in the town, and so we always take advantage of formal warnings, and plus we're also aware of meeting statutes that are across the state,
Sure.
and so he had given us a warning on the 28th Street medians, and
We
but
were
that's
on both main ones, and
yeah.
then once he did
And so-
that, we went to the private.
and that's not necessarily like we go off of just simply an officer telling us things. That just happened to be like just a simple run-in.
Right.
But yeah, we had previously identified these using maps and plats and statutes.
Sure.
We actually do this a lot.
He told
and,
us he would not touch us there, that we were okay.
Yeah. But I mean, cops can give bad legal advice. So
True.
naturally, our due process was to give you a little bit of background. My brother and I were from Fort Collins. We've been ticketed illegally by cops before, many times, being outside of jurisdictions, being outside of their elements, not even reading through the statutes a lot of times.
Yeah.
So while the officers here claimed that they were being original, or they tried to act as though this is the first time, we've already kind of had this argument with 4 other or more jurisdictions.
And there's CAs and they evolve.
Yeah. So other jurisdictions, they have panhandling statutes. Same thing. It applies to a public road. You have to step out on the road, beyond the median of the road, so forth and so on. So just as an example, Marketplace is a private drive in North Glen.
Mm-hmm.
They tried that with the panhandling statute there for David. Didn't work. Westminster, there's 9400 and Sheridan there. There's a private drive right before you get to Walmart. They tried that there.
So Federal Heights.
Federal Heights, there's
right there.
same
There's a
thing.
meeting there.
And then
Didn't work.
there's but yeah, there's ones in Fort Collins. Basically, every time that we get wronged by the police, we end up kind of being taught what they're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, let's put it this way: this is getting so old that we started audio taping everything, the entire encounter, and so this is actually the end of our about 15 to 16 42 USCs that we've already won all their trials. We're just trying to file the paperwork to the counterclaims, and so we wanted to inform you that this was one of the fastest, easiest cases we had. We ended up putting everything on YouTube because trying to get a unified place where people can view it in context with all our other cases. But yeah, the actual video, audio, I put my phone in my pocket. Follow up with internal affairs. We have this thing called a ghost protocol, a sting, and so what we'll end up doing is we'll call in as an anonymous person, maybe as an anti-abortionist with a church out of Fort Collins, and we'll usually get an officer that's dumb enough to not know that we're in this case or not know at all, offer legal advice or so forth, and I already called him in, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's freedom of speech, that's private property," and so this isn't the first time, and so
a homeless ghost protocol.
Yeah, it's kind of human trafficking.
With your homeless people and writing what looks like legit tickets
and
running them out of town.
So the most important thing that we've noticed is that there is a certain protocol that everyone takes to start off with defamation. Maybe they have a case. Then we'll ask direct questions. They'll have to ratify and kind of tell us. And so I have audio of like internal affairs or the supervisor saying that's a public street, or internal affairs is it's maintained for the purposes of the median. And these are all contradictions. Basically, it's let's put it this way: what we've gathered over the last couple of years is an investigation that has to do with certain type of ideology based upon Christianity, not really based upon evidence or facts. And what ends up happening is people are staff frauded. Homeless people don't know their rights. Public defenders don't know their rights. So no one's actually coming full circle with these officers. They think they know more than they do, and then they end up racketeering out of the detainment that they're already too late in. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen officers lie, try perjury.
Sure.
These are basically medical complications of egos not collapsing correctly. And so
maybe what I'll do is just try to see what I can look at this property real quick.
Yeah, hey man, you can go to our YouTube channel. We took pictures of it all the maps and plats and statutes and stuff. So
so as you guys probably know, our definition of street is similar, if not the same, as the state law definition.
Yeah, entire width between the property boundary lines.
So it's similar to running a stop sign. You can't give running a stop sign or a private property ticket.
Yeah, if the stop sign in the statute is of a road.
Yeah, if it says for the purposes of the statute, it applies to roads. If they applied it everywhere, then how it's written would be objective, and you would get people parking lots. It would be fought and overturned. Why are you carrying people running stop signs on private property?
Yeah. So let's just put it this way: you're seeing the very, very nice side of us, but we're turning in the state of Colorado for crimes against humanity.
Angry. We've been kidnapped like 50 times. This one's the worst.
Nobody knows the definition of probable cause or arguable probable cause, and a lot of people haven't even heard what a 42 USC is. And so
we've been trained by a pro se attorney who has won his cases and has worked in city attorney offices before. Came across our cases, taught us how to pro se.
And so one thing that we're really concerned about was her asking that we be represented. We ended up going pro se after being given lots of bad legal advice. And our result is that we're extremely successful in identifying cronies. And so the fact that you guys already talked to Internal Affairs about it, the Department of Transportation, the city attorney. She said that there's still an issue. You guys are still saying that there's some sort of factual issues. That right then, all of that, that's racketeering activities. You guys are potentially all cronies.
Well, wouldn't you rather have me do the investigation first before,
precisely.
so you don't have to
Well,
come
I mean,
back again?
Yeah. The officer is the one that
intended.
should have. And technically speaking, any investigation you do, naturally, if it falls out right here, you would have a probable cause to go arrest your officer.
We're not claiming anything against you. We have a problem after we tell people, and then they decide to sign otherwise.
Yeah. So one of the
you
reasons
can do whatever you want. We will gladly throw under the bus anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but let's put this
So wait,
way.
you're saying if I dismiss it, you're going to arrest the officer?
Well, it would be a good case for 42 USC. But you would.
What does that mean to you to arrest an officer?
Okay, naturally speaking, when you guys have crimes like we've seen in the in jail, for instance, up in Fort Collins, there was an officer in the jail that had been caught viewing documents appropriately. It was a misdemeanor. It's a charge. Simple as that. So, naturally speaking,
if you're detaining someone without jurisdiction or justification, it's a false imprisonment.
Yeah. So there's no probable cause or no arguable probable cause, and in the end, these are simply matters that we're catching. People not training their officers on the most basic concepts. People not
Or
using maps,
accidentally
statutes,
hiring
plats.
racists, and they don't know that they're racist in their force.
And so, real quick, we often find that there's a level of intellectual theft that officers try to go through when they go out there without knowing all the information. They quickly find out they don't have it all. They'll usually try and get it out of us. We learned that if we offer it when they don't want it, they won't accept it. And then when we don't offer it when they do want it, they basically lynch us off what they have. And so here we were very clear in this case, right from the get-go, the moment that he said, well, first off, he started off with panhandling in a roadway. We asked which statute, he wouldn't specify. They kept drilling down. He said he had to go look up the statute. Eventually it was a median. Then right when we heard the word median,
Reasonable suspicion.
right when he said the word median, that's when we were like, nope, this is a private drive. It's a private drive, private drive, private drive. Look, there's a sign right there. And so they denied our exculpatory evidence. They wouldn't turn around and even look at the sign. I had to describe the sign's locations to them under the bike sign. We tried to explain that we've used map statutes plats before.
Also, that another.
You name it. So this is what we call a lynch. It's a, it's like the '60s with black people. So
Yeah, I mean, all I can really tell you about is this particular, let's see, Walnut there, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's just Walnut. I don't know anything about any of the other, drives or streets or whatever you call them in Boulder. Just this particular one.
Yeah, there is a Walnut Street, and that's maybe where the Department of Transportation got confused.
Sure.
But these they could be called anything. It's just private property.
Yeah, so these ones looks like on one side there is no property boundary between the widths as the statute says. The other side there is, and I understand that the city does have a transportation
Did you say
easement there.
28th Street?
Wait. So the west side or the east side? You said.
Listen.
So the west side has two parcels that just butt up against each other in the middle-ish there. The east side has all three parcels. Parcel. It's all parcels.
Yeah.
So between the property boundary lines, it's all private property. So there is
Does it
technically
matter
the
if I'm
same.
slightly on one side of that median or the other?
Or no. What they're saying is that the side that I was on, the east side, that area is its own. It happens to be its own parcel,
Right.
because they parcelized it. But it has actual private property here and here. They're trying to maybe say that it's between those property boundary lines. But the
That
actual
side's a little bit closer because if the city maintained that, I think it could be regarded as a street.
well,
To my knowledge,
No
I
city
don't think
maintenance.
it's
Both of
something
them
they
said
do.
no city
yeah, they're all private. Yeah, if you click on them, they're all private drives. They're all parcels. They're not even roads.
So basically, from what I'm seeing, I don't think I could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So
Hey man,
that's
that's the
the only
most
thing that I have.
intellectually honest answer we've gotten out of 50 cops now.
The
That's
only
really
thing,
amazing.
yeah. Well, so I don't control any other aspect of this situation.
No, of course not. But
So
yeah,
I don't think I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That doesn't mean that I'm saying it was an inappropriate stop or anything like that.
Let me say one thing.
I can't get you.
No. Yeah. If you guys want to claim that you maybe in your own minds still like to validate yourselves, have probable cause still, since the judge hasn't, 42 USC judge hasn't come around, you wouldn't be able to say either other way. But naturally, we see this all happen all the time. People dismiss our charges in the interest of justice.
And they think that there's still problems.
Yeah, and there's still problems. So, there's an argument for, obviously, for an officer that is mistaken reasonably, an objectively reasonable mistake, And so we think that an officer, obviously thinking a private drive in the street is not objectively reasonable. That's why we'll argue that in our counter court.
Yeah, that's our issue.
Yeah. And
yes, that is your issue.
Yeah, and well, not necessarily, because if we don't go to a 42 USC court, are you going to otherwise instruct officers to not keep picking people up on that same private drive?
Like,
naturally, you guys would have a little bit of room for your own reform, training, and so forth. And so
I mean, I don't have any.
The real
really
question.
Can't say one or the other. So we'll have to look.
Yeah, the real question is, if we go out there, are we going to be arrested again? Because we'll gladly go back out there again. We're sick and tired of moving along. Oh, and by the way, property owner did come out and talk to David already on my side. That's why he moved to the other side. And so we always take advantage of first formal warning processes. So I'm just waiting for that property owner to come out and talk to me, but he hasn't since.
Sounds like you guys understand that private property. If someone were to come out and say, "Hey, this is our property," you guys got to move on. Then
exactly.
Super simple. You just don't repeat the act, or if they tell you not to come back at all, don't come back at all, and you sue them for banning you entirely. It's not
there's civil discrimination laws and so forth. But we tried. We really tried to be as
really tried to talk to
them. No. What I mean is like void for vagueness. A statute that doesn't inform the person if what a reasonable person would see as the crime. We went off of as much information as we could to believe that this was fairly set up. The statutes aren't even vague about it. There's never been any issues. The only issues we ever had were with officers that were in the middle of a ticket with us. But we always, like I said, always called in as anti-abortionists. No issues there. We would go into their city attorney or the city manager's office with their survey department, their leasing department. There was never any issues there.
Also, I've done that a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure it's not behind me. Cops passed by me.
Yeah. So, in fact, that's a good way to word this. Is we're out there often enough, putting together a paperwork for all these other cases, that naturally we run into officers that are either going to know it or not, and if we're out there long enough, those ones that don't know the law, they're going to come out and they're going to expose themselves. And so while other officers gave us the go.
9 out of 10 will pass by, but one dumb one will come up and just think we're stupid and won't let us explain ourselves.
Yeah, and honestly, the reason why we threw this all up on YouTube, we really feel like you might want to see these. There's other jurisdictions that have actually done the exact same thing, stopping us and then saying that there's some sort of panhandling charge out there, which we think they've never actually read. Just like this one, and it's the exact same. They say the word panhandling.
They just assumed
that someone had a statute, and then basically when we drilled down, they wouldn't drill down with us. And then by the time we drilled down in court, it was always dropped.
Even worse is what I think is going on is no one had gotten to these cops before to teach them exactly how to go about it, and so
you read your statutes
probably
first.
We call it a sweep person. He's probably moved hundreds of homeless people through this dumb way of doing it. And when we came around and explained to him that he did his job wrong, he
probably wanted to hide that.
Handle it and was trying to hide it. And is now trying to keep his job and his pension and retirement.
So
what he did was very wrong.
Yeah. So criminal law psychology, we call it. We find that if no one wants to have these fights in the streets, they'll end up in court. But that's not where you want it to end up. And so here,
some things are meant for
this feels like a waste of time. No offense or anything.
For courts.
You should feel like this is a waste of time. If other officers said that this is perfectly fine, and they're not in error, and they've looked at their map, statutes, and plats, and so forth. And so naturally, we've seen the jurisdictions just kind of want to push off their determination of probable cause to never, so that they never look bad and no one ever has to challenge them and so forth. And so here they wanted to push it off one more step. That's the short term versus the long term. Everyone always wants to take one more step, but then
they think that
our time always gets wasted.
No homeless person's gonna fight back.
Maybe we'll plead. Honestly, I don't want to insinuate this, but a lot of times they are pretty hell bent on just trying to get an ID, just to see if we have warrants to get rid of us.
Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm just bringing out some motions to dismiss here. I just got to give you guys some copies of those. So,
hey, thank you.
So so you just want to have a seat here for a minute? I'll be right back.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's kind of the same shit.
us to be represented. Literally proves our case. They don't want to hear this from us.
It goes back to my theory that proves the racket where you like your attorneys because they're cronies.
Because they don't turn you in.
And they show up. Literally, the guns right there. The attorney right there.
You're under arrest. So if you guys think that,
Your own stat fraud.
yeah. So if you guys think that as long as it's dismissed in the interest of justice, you're okay.
Okay. Hey man, if they drop it, CA Scott Ward.
Hey man, you guys are off the hook.
Hey man, who cares about training issues? That's so deep complicated.
Hey, you guys can do that. We just want to hold the cops responsible. They're the ones
If you
who
want
did
to
that.
be who's responsible, if the judge wants to, we'll hold the judge responsible. We'll just keep going up the chain.
Yeah. If you guys don't want to do it yourselves, we'll do
We'll
it.
be fired and we'll do it.
This is about how I would expect you to go at this point.
Considering how knowledgeable they are. At
No.
first, I'll hand it to them, wish-wash, but they still know the jurisdiction. After becoming an expert, I don't accept this crap anymore. We're experts on these issues. It's actually really simple.
We'll never know. We never made it to our 42 years.
Honestly, we should find if it's really easy.
No one but attorney. We'll do it right away.
To show the turnaround is.
So how this usually works is that the originals go to the judge and are signed, and then the judge signs them, and then they're mailed out. Once that has happened, do you guys have an address or?
305 West Magnolia Street. I don't know if that was on there.
Yeah.
Okay, it was maybe on your ticket, or maybe it's somewhere. And it was what was the address?
Oh wow, it's not here. At 305 West Magnolia Street, same for both of us. And then on that same line, after street, the letters PMB for private mail box, not a post office box.
PMB.
Yeah, Paul Mary Bravo, 22. And
It's a
that's
private
Fort
post office.
Collins, Colorado 80521. Yeah, that we can get like.
Or if you want to go back to the
bills.
courtroom, the judge can probably sign it right now and give you a copy if you
I
want.
kind of wanted to see the judge.
What's that?
Yeah, I wanted to see the judge.
You
yeah.
do want to see the judge?
If
Yeah.
it's a waste of time.
Make
to
it all
mail
nice and
let's just
official.
get it now. It's
Sure.
really
Yeah.
good.
You can do that. Yeah, I mean, it's really just.
Oh, this
her
was an
saying-
alternative. Yeah. No, we'll wait.
But yeah, I don't know if she's gonna have a discussion per se. It's more like, okay, I'm signing
should
the
just
motion
get
to
a
dismiss.
Oh,
and
that's all
here
we
we go.
care about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
sign paper.
Um,
Done.
Sure.
We've lost stuff in the mail before too. So.
Right.
Anything-
Yeah. So I was just noted.
Boy.
Yeah, that PMB it could be a little complicated there. I don't know. But
Yeah, David just spent a month waiting for his ID, and
That's
they were
'cause
terminated.
That's because the
Oh,
DMV doesn't accept that address. Everywhere else
They
that
put
accepts
those.
that address, it will definitely send stuff there. So
Yeah,
if there's anything else you need to send us, that's a good address.
okay,
But,
sure. But do you guys want to get that signed now? Is that what
sure,
you're
absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Sure. Okay. Go
Yeah.
ahead and have a seat then, and then I think the judge should be back in a couple minutes. To,
Sure
to
thing.
do that.
And also, still, if you want, I mean, we think it's extremely educational at this point. But if you type in the search words into YouTube, false arrested by Boulder police for holding a sign on a private drive.
Okay.
The entire thing, video footage that you guys have never been able to see before, of how an officer reacts on the scene, and they, racketeer. So
You can see the full
I'm
case
not
for
kidding. It's
yourself.
really.
You can get after it.
We have about 30 of these cases. Each one has a playlist of 10, 20 videos, things like that.
We pro se them all. We won them all, except for 2 camping and tickets, which
Yeah.
fit the elements.
So we're really, honestly, we really appreciate that you didn't throw yourself under this bus, unless you were one of the people that had already talked to the internal affairs, because they said they had spoken to the city attorney and the Department of Transportation. So we don't know if that's you or not, but if we find out that's you, you're still gonna be headed to our complaint. Otherwise, whoever's touched it from here on, you guys are clear. So.
All right. Well, yeah. Let me make sure that head back to the courtroom for now.
Yeah. But really, please talk to internal affairs. I think they could probably do some training
Here's your
on this. Thanks.
Hey, can you watch myself in here?
Sure.